Welcome back into the Fantasy Football Funhouse. I am Salito FF, and I am joined by Sid Skeet on the bottom, and none other than Kevin Cotillo himself up there in the top right corner. Kevin, before we get too deep into the show, we have a special shout-out tonight, don't we?
We do. We have a very, very special shout-out tonight. You know, for those of you who may have been following us along our journey through this podcasting world for might I say 5 years now, guys, is that correct? We actually been doing this for 5 years. How have we not gotten any better? But you know that I digress. Over the last 5 years, we've run into a lot of great people in this industry. Obviously, the Podathon showed a lot of the people that we've met, and you know, people that watched it know even more. We've been lucky enough to hook up with this group, the Dummy Funhouse Podcast Network, that we, the only network in town, and it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of good people in there, but I will say that there's one special individual within that group who just constantly kills it with content, especially for us when we ask him to do things like songs and tweets and videos and mostly songs. It's really just songs, but he does some great work with the songs. He's the writer of this theme song to this very show. If you're listening in podcast form and not watching live, which you should be watching live, but if you're listening in podcast form, he wrote this intro song to this very, very podcast. So tonight is his birthday. This will be very dated by the time most of you listen to this. However, we do need to give a special shout out to our good friend Tacit Assassin 13 on Twitter, Mr. Zach Reed. Happy birthday, buddy. I have no idea how old you are. I'm going to assume it's younger than Sal because everyone's younger than Sal. So happy birthday, buddy.
I pointed it out on Twitter today. When word came down, this was going to be the first topic tonight anyway, word came down that the Major League Baseball season was already in danger after only a weekend's worth of baseball because the Florida Marlins have 14 members of their organization, 11 players and 3 coaches or 3 staff members test positive for COVID. As a result, their game was canceled tonight. The Yankees-Phillies game, because they just left Philly, was canceled for tonight. And who knows where we go from here. But bring that up. Scott Fish puts out on Twitter that at 2-1, the Minnesota Twins are basically the 2020 MLB champions, he believes. And I wrote back that he gets nothing. And to that, he wrote that then you officially admit that you are not the XFL champion. And I said, aside from being younger and better looking than Matthew Berry, I wanted one thing over him, just one thing. It's Bob Gilchrist, who was on there egging it on, by the way, on Twitter today. But guys, we see what's going on with the Marlins. That's the first thing we'll address because this is something that's very real, that this could happen in the NFL. A team could be, they're going to have those smaller meeting rooms, as we heard, or small practices with position groups, but it's still going to be a group of men or ladies. There are some female coaches in the league now that are going to be in a group together and run the risk of spreading COVID if one person happens to have it. Steve, you gave me a 40% chance that we start on time last week. With the news that happened in Florida, do you see it as a bad omen or something the NFL can learn from?
I am going to be the forever pessimist on this podcast, evidently, and I don't like it, not one bit. No, sir, I do not like it.
Oh, sir,
getting those tests, and what is so concerning is that we got so far, like we spoke about last week. It got this deep and this close to training camp opening up before they actually got everything hammered out, and I worry that we see what's happening with baseball and what baseball is doing differently than the other sports that are coming back with soccer, hockey, and basketball is that all the teams are playing in their home stadiums, just like football is planning on doing. Whereas those other 3 sports that I mentioned have gone into like a bubble type scenario where they've been able to keep everybody in one area, or at least attempt to, looking at you, Lou Williams, and try and hold everybody there and keep, limit the amount of people that are coming in and out and try and mitigate the transfer of anything and being able to isolate it a lot easier if something were to pop up. The NFL is not doing that. And so I think it's only a matter of time before a team gets hit. And I mean, we got through 3 days of baseball before this happened to the Marlins. And it's just, I think everyone was expecting something to happen, but for it to be, this many players this quickly, it really does not make me feel very good about the season. I think there will be games. I find it hard to believe that there will be 16 games.
Kevin,
as usual, Steve, you did not listen to the question correctly, because the question was, will they start on time? And I still think that there's a good chance they start on time. I also think that there's a terrible chance that they play all 16 games. Because what we've seen now is the starting of things, putting things together as quickly as possible, and then getting started, and then finding out that there are bumps along the way and having to take time off, or cancel games, or put your entire team on the NFI COVID list, or whatever it may be. I mean, these things are going to happen, and we actually talked about this a little bit when we were on the podcast, right? Our podathon. We talked about the fact that you could have a team forfeit a game because their team, their players, their whole offensive line gets put on the list, or is gets COVID. So, I think it's definitely a real possibility that games get canceled and or forfeited. And to me, I guess, Sal, I'll kick it back to you with this question. What do you think happens if a game gets forfeited for COVID? I mean, is everyone going to be, let's just play this out, right? Let's say that we get through the majority of the season and we're getting down to the wire, and the Patriots, just, randomly, the Patriots of all teams, win a game at the end of the season with playoff implications because the other team has to forfeit. How ballistic will the entire world go if they get in on that kind of technicality? I mean, it's just, and obviously that, I exaggerate because it's the Patriots, but what do you think people will think of this season? Are we starting with an asterisk before we even go? Like
we was saying last week with what we're going to have to accept with all sports this year. I think all these sports are going to be with an asterisk, because who knows what we're going to get, how long we're going to be able to go, how legitimate any of it's going to be. I think they I was holding that one back until we could reveal, but I think that they're doing this because of the money, and they want to get the people out there, and us as fans are craving it. And there's a whole market of fantasy and gamblers out there that are pretty much concerned for the week to week of what they could do to the DFS market and the gambling market. I think there's probably 50% of the fans that don't care if there's a complete season. They care what they could do on a week to week basis. But that does leave all kinds of open ends on betting as well, Kevin. A forfeit, how does that go? I know the Major League Baseball sites, some of the gambling sites are doing it different. If you bet on a game and took, the pitcher, if you say you took Clayton Kershaw the other night to win, he was listed out only maybe an hour or two before the game. You had to still go through with the bet on certain sites. They didn't take the bet in the past. That bet would be canceled out. So this is going to be a wait and see, guys. We're going to figure this out as we go along.
There certainly is. So a lot of discussion on the chat so far already about what's in our surroundings. First off, Sal, I put this one up on there because I thought that would be interesting to you, since you were saying before we started recording that you were mesmerized by my ceiling fan.
Instantly, Matt, as soon as he put that, I put him up on a screen, that fan just woo.
and then, of course, we have this. That's the big question, Steve. Everyone wants to know.
Ain't that computer down, buddy?
You got pictured down. There it is.
Who's back, everybody?
He's back. He's making his long-awaited return. Listen, I didn't want to get into it last week. Me and Potathon Chair had a little bit of a falling out. And I don't mean we got in a fight. I mean, I literally fell out of the chair. Was not happy, did not feel safe in the chair anymore.
So just to be clear, you got your ass kicked by a chair.
I mean, no one's going to be surprised by that. So I had to upgrade. I upgraded, and I did the show last week in the nice upgraded soft plush chair. It just wasn't the same. So I called Potathon Chair back. We patched things up, and so here we are, tag team back again for the kids.
While we got it scrolling on the bottom of the screen, I cried out to the UnderdogFantasy.com, Underdog Fantasy app today to come be a sponsor of the title sponsor of the SFB Podathon next year, and of course our little show here. But at the bottom, if you follow the ticker, you'll see the dfpn.storenv.com, and that's where you can get awesome merchandise like this Fantasy Football Funhouse t-shirt. We have stickers. We have mugs. We have all kinds of wonderful stuff there. We have wonderful stuff with the DFPN logo on it, like this sweatshirt right here. And you get all the Dynasty dummies, J Mike's Blitz, the dummy Blitz. Is that what he calls it? That crazy guy? And all the stuff. You get everything there, guys. Help us. We need money. It's been tough through COVID. Go to dfpn.store, nv.com, and buy something, preferably our stuff, not the other guy's stuff.
So just before we move on, this comment by Zach since it is his birthday. First of all, great comment. Unbelievable drop in there. But I want to say, do we think that the chair was a better hitter than MJ was? Because I'm guessing yes.
It's got to be. It's got to be.
He's definitely made more contact. Kareem, not only do you need this shirt, but we also have the original Falafel House t-shirt on sale at dfpn.store, nv.com.
Which brings up a great point, because the quality of the new falafel shirt far better than the original.
I'll tell you what, I cut the sleeves off the Star Wars one. I wear it to the beach. It's really nice. Guns out, suns out. All right, guys. So as we saw, we're getting back to the COVID stuff. We had a situation in the NBA with Lou Williams, who stopped for chicken wings on his way back to the bubble, also known as a strip club, where a picture was taken. So to further, on the story we said before, on what we were touching on before, we have to know that these guys are going to behave. These are young men with money. There are some older guys there with families, but there's a lot of young men with money who think they can get away with stuff. And it's going to be scary. But Roger Goodell did come up with a temporary IR spot for players who test positive for COVID-19. There'll be no minimum or maximum stay with return subject to medical clearance. Teams can promote a player from the practice squad to replace any positive player, then return them to the taxi squad without subjecting them to waivers. That could get a little tricky to enforce, but this is a no-brainer approach to dealing with the pandemic. They also expanded the practice squads to 16 players. So you can have those IR spots where, like you were saying, Kevin, a guy can show up on that report Thursday, Friday, miss the game. But now we have more players to bring in. Hopefully they're going to have a variety of players on there. They might have a group of guys in waiting that'll have to be signed off the street to fill positions. Hopefully we'll never get to the point where we're going to have a forfeit. But already some of the players, not big name offensive players, but wide receiver Richie James from the 49ers was put on the reserve list. Keyshawn Vaughn, who's fighting for a starting position in Tampa Bay with Ronald Jones out, it gives Ronald Jones a leg up now that Vaughn will be quarantined for a while in Tampa. And Justin Jefferson, who we all feel has got the, probably in the best position for a wide receiver year one to have a breakout of the rookies. He's in there now. So, guys, do you look at this as, damn, they're in this? Now, that doesn't mean they necessarily have it. That means they could have come across somebody who did have it. They were in contact. They're quarantining those guys also. Do you look at this as a bad thing, or do you look at this as, hey, they're getting it now, which means more than likely they're going to develop antibodies, and these guys are going to be good come the season? Do you look at it that way at all?
Yeah, I think the problem I have there is, for one, we're already starting to see research come out with a significant number of people that don't get build up an immunity to it. We're seeing that immunity can fade after a short period of time, including even like a month or two. So now you may have a guy that has it. So you can't change your protocols once a guy has had it, right? It's not like they go onto they've had COVID list and they're immune from having to get tested and all of that, right? So there's still all those possibilities. There'll still be contact tracing with those guys, and they can still be removed from a lineup because they've had contact with someone that has it. That's just reality of where we're at. So I think it's a good thing that they're doing what they're doing, but it just makes it that much harder to figure out how they're going to make this work, and how are they going to get these games played? How are they going to not have a significant outbreak? You're talking about 80 players right now practicing, and granted they're doing as much as they can with separation and smaller meetings and yada yada yada, but it's 80 players practicing the same sport at the same time for each venue. Football has it a lot worse than most other sports. I mean, when you're talking about the NBA, they have 15, 17? I don't know how many. I hate the NBA. How many players are on a roster, Steve?
Usually 12.
So
at the most.
So there you go. So I mean,
on like a night.
hockey has a roster of what, 30? I mean, you're just significantly at a disadvantage when you're talking about the NFL because of how many players they have to have in these groups and how many coaches are there as well. So it's going to be real tough for them to get this season in and keep it going. Maybe they need to bring in the XFL as like their sister team and finish that season alongside, right? So they just have more player pool to choose from.
You make me happy.
And I'll also just add on top of everything like Kevin said, because I agree with that. There are also people that get it and don't recover as quickly as everybody else and don't recover from all of their symptoms as quickly as from everybody else. I remember hearing that when Von Miller had gotten it, a couple months after that he had gotten over it, he said that he was still having trouble getting to that level of cardio that he had before, where he was able to, to go as long as he used to. So that I don't think you ever want to see a player on there. But I agree, like the protocols are in place for a reason, and you got to utilize them. But like Kevin said, you don't get it once, and then all of a sudden you're not tested anymore for the rest of the season. It's not a drug test. So, yes, you don't ever want to see them on there. But
with the reserved list, we also have the voluntary opt-out list, and there are lots of guys starting to take that option this week, just in the last day or so. Caleb Brantley, the defensive lineman from the Washington football team, which, by the way, Steve Marcus called them the Washington football team from day one on this podcast. Never went with the old name. Running back, or we'll call him fullback, Dan Vitale of the New England Patriots, who just had a new baby, has taken the opt-out now, so that leaves you guys with lesser experienced guys in the backfield at that position. Chance Warmack from Seattle, an offensive guard, he lost a family member. And he's going to be taking the opt-out as well. And wide receiver DeAnthony Thomas of the Baltimore Ravens, who's, again, not a big fantasy name, and there's some other young wide receivers there, but it kills the depth of the team and has, bring in some other people. I'm sure there's going to be a big name at some point that lands on that list, a name that we have drafted somewhere already, maybe in the Scott Fish Bowl, or we have them on a dynasty roster, on a team that's going to compete this year and it's going to hurt.
So there's a deadline, right? Like it's the end of the week. They have till July 31st, right, to opt out with their whatever their settlement is. Is that correct? Am I wrong on that?
You may be right. I'm be crazy. I didn't hear that, Kevin.
I thought I heard there was a deadline for them to opt out and still get some form of, because I think they get some form of payment for the season, even though they're not playing.
It's $150,000 opt out, and then it's $350. For Caleb Brantley is opting out with a pre-existing medical condition. He gets $350,000 because he's in a higher risk category. So they will get something.
For the opt-out clause as a fantasy player, you like knowing that they have this deadline where they have to opt out by, otherwise they're in for the season. But from like a human being perspective, does that mean if say the Chiefs get absolutely ravaged by this thing, and there are guys that are just like, no way, I'm done, I'm out of here, and they're just like, nope, you had your chance to opt out, you're staying right there, and you're getting this virus.
Duct tape to the goalpost, my friend.
That's right. There's like no going back on that at all whatsoever.
I believe it's August 3rd is what I'm reading. Opt-out clause in writing by August 3rd. So.
Yep, Zach put that up on the screen also. Before I move on from the COVID talk, in a conversation on the Buccaneers plans for handling the coronavirus, Coach Bruce Arians stated, the players are going to get sick. That's for sure. It's just a matter of how sick they'll get, Arians continued. We've got to be careful. This season will be unlike any other. Positive cases will be confirmed, and it appears the NFL will attempt to power through them with a multi-week quarantine for impacted players and staff members, and a larger practice squad to pick replacements from, yada, yada, yada. But Bruce Arians already convinced all the players are going to get sick. So I guess the teams are preparing for that. So, guys, you want actual NFL news? You want to move on from this COVID stuff?
This is the NFL news. This is the NFL now.
Well, if you didn't know, Steve, Raheem Mostert kicked and screamed like a baby and got his way. And the 49ers restructured his contract, and it basically made it incentive-laden, where he can earn as much as Tevin Coleman is on that roster. So, Kevin, let me go to you first. With that being said, and Raheem Mostert happy, who is the running back that you want in San Francisco this year? Why is it not Jerick McKinnon?
Can I take option D? Someone not even on the roster right now, because that's the way that roster is built, right? Whoever Shanahan chooses for that any given Sunday is going to be the guy. Look, this month, Raheem Mostert, it was good last year. He had some good fantasy production. Coleman's still a guy that I think will get a lot of run, and McKinnon still exists, I believe. So I think that I have no interest in anyone in that backfield. I don't think any of them are altogether too talented, and I don't expect any of them to dominate. I do think you'll get solid games, right? Like I think someone will be the guy for a game, but then everyone's gonna load up on him and start him, and then the next game it's gonna be someone completely else, other than him, and it's really gonna frustrate owners all season long. So for me, my money is anywhere but San Francisco as far as the running game is concerned.
Yeah, I was pretty happy when all this news was breaking with him being upset, because it pushed his ADP down into closer to the late 5th to 6th round, which is where I'd feel much more comfortable drafting him. Where he was going in SFB and where he's gone in other drafts, 3rd round, maybe early 4th round, that's just too high for somebody that's dealing with all the issues that Kevin mentioned of having, multiple backs there that can that are so useful and can run the ball. And so I think much like Sal's issue with Kenyon Drake, my issue isn't necessarily with Mostert so much, it's with his value. I think his value for his situation is just a little too high, and so I'm probably going to be passing on him most everywhere.
Zach, I'm not sure if the incentives are out there, but there is you can look up on RotoWorld. They have a list of numbers that you can meet based on different things, but I don't know if they have exactly what he needs to do.
This is a classic, and again, you don't unless we know exactly what the escalators are. Who knows? But it seems to me like it's probably the classic. All right, let's make the guy happy, and then not give him a chance to earn the incentives anyway, right? Because he's not going to have carries to do it. So it is. But NFL teams do it all the time. I mean, it's just the way of the NFL.
Seems very patriot-y. Yeah, very patriot-y.
I mean, we win, don't we?
Guys, Dalvin Cook supposedly told somebody he was coming to camp, but then his agent said no, he didn't tell anybody he's coming to camp. I think based on the new wording in the CBA, it's a pay to play this season. You're going to get paid if you play. So the holdout almost means nothing for him. You're not going to get your full contract if you're not there anyway, because of the way the CBA has been worded. So does this scare you? I was in a draft earlier today for No Kid Goes Hungry. If I'm getting the name of that charity wrong. And the person was worried. They wanted to wait till tomorrow to draft so they could see if Dalvin Cook shows up. Steve, are you worried at all about Dalvin Cook? Aside from the typical injury stuff, are you worried he shows up to camp and then maybe decides to leave? And was Dalvin Cook going to play week 1?
I think so. I think he'll be there. For some reason, I don't think this one is as legit in terms of his willingness to hold out as some of the other ones that we'd seen. So yeah, I think he'll be there. I wish I would not have passed on him in SFB. I had a chance to grab him, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Your team sucks. Could have used them.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I'm not worried about him. I think he will show up. I think maybe Mike Zimmer read that in the CBA and said, yeah, he'll be here. He's actually. If you're
Dalvin Cook, right? If you're Dalvin Cook and you're considering holding out at a certain point, right? But you know that you're not going to get paid if you do it, and you're going to make $2 million this year, and knowing that next year's probably going to be a little bit of a better, situation for you. Does his contract toll if he takes the opt out, or does he have to become a free agent next year? Because I'm thinking, like, if I'm him, take the 150 and hold out.
I saw for the guys who are going to go on the high risk list, they will get that year. But I think if you opt out, you do not get that year. So we'll have to look into the wording on that a little bit deeper. But
if he can come up with some kind of high risk thing, then he can get 350 and get his year, and then cash in next year.
Well, his high risk is that he just gets hurt all the time.
Right? Can he just say that?
Being on the field is a high risk for him. Steve, you had something you wanted to bring up before I move on to our wide receiver ADP.
That's right. I was perusing the old Twitter earlier today, And instead of thinking of some of my own content, I just decided to steal someone else's. So this is a question that I came across from our friends at the NFL UK, so from across the old pond, and they want you to finish the sentence. And then they also listed 5 people, but I'm gonna list the 5, and then I want you to give us your answer, Sal, or have a write-in answer if you want one. So the sentence is: the coach or player under the most pressure heading into the 2020 season is. And the 5 that they listed are 1, Adam Gase; 2, Bill O'Brien; 3, Mitchell Trubisky; 4, Sam Darnold; or number 5, Juju Smith-Schuster. So which one of those are facing the most pressure heading into this year?
Who was the one before Sam Darnold?
Trubisky.
So, yeah, Trubisky, he's not under pressure. We all know he sucks. Adam Gase, now they got a built-in excuse because they traded Jamal Adams, right? But I always thought Adam Gase was going to be gone from the start anyway. I think the guy with the most pressure on him is Tom Brady. Tom Brady goes down to Tampa. They're right away saying they're a shoo-in to make the playoffs, win the division, go to the Super. There's all these. Tom Brady's not the reason New England has been good the last few years. He's been a part of a good team, but I think the most pressure is put squarely on Tom Brady's shoulders. He may not think there is, and that's good. Tom's always been a very cool, calm player, but whether he wants to admit it or not, the entire NFL is tuning in to see him turn that team around, which is probably incorrect to do to him.
So
all right, Kevin.
Conversely, wouldn't you think that Cam Newton is a guy that has an awful lot of pressure on his shoulders as well, given that he is, been labeled now injury prone, broken down, can't be as what he once was, and is coming in with limited money to start with? He basically has to go out there and play in order to get paid this year and play even harder to get a contract next year. To me, he's a guy that's never won a Super Bowl, but won everything else basically throughout his career. He's been, a college championship winner. He's been a Heisman winner. He's been an MVP, but he's never won a Super Bowl. So to me, he's a guy with an awful lot of pressure in my mind. And he's got a guy that, for some reason, people around here think that even if Cam is healthy, Jarrett Stidham should get a chance to start, which is crazy.
Agreed.
You must have him in places, Steve.
I've got him in a few spots.
Yeah, I could definitely see what you're saying, Kevin. Cam and Tom, and for the most part, it's always quarterbacks that have pressure on them, right?
Sure. Jamal Adams, though, not another one for a bad, got a little pressure on him. I mean, guys always, complaining about getting paid, gets traded for 2 first rounds, and that's a lot of pressure to come into a new team and produce for that kind of.
Scott Fish checking with, oh no, I hope Newton doesn't have pressure on his shoulders. They can't take any more pressure. But listen, the thing with Jamal Adams is that's not his team, right? That's Russell Wilson's team. And Jamal Adams is good. He's 25 years old, and he may be the best in the position in the league at that position. I hate the fact that he got his way. I hate the fact that players can do this and essentially make up something that wasn't true. The fans loved him. It was by far my son's favorite player with the Jets. One of the jerseys he owns, he got traded on his birthday. I had to break the news to him while we were out to dinner. And he was really disappointed because when I've had this conversation so many times, there's so much turnover at the top of that organization over and over again. When can they ever be stable? When can a young quarterback like Sam Darnold, grow in a system with them constantly changing coaches, GMs? Now you got really good homegrown defensive players talking their way out of there. And Le'Veon Bell's pissed off now because Jamal Adams did everything to get him there the last year and then just basically takes off in a selfish way. It sucks to see the selfish players. And he's going to be successful. That Seattle's going to end up benefiting from it. And to something that J. Mike said here, that Joe Douglas is the real MVP. So J. Mike in New York, the midday show now that Mike Francesca is gone for the midday show, is these guys, Joe and Evan, who are huge Jet fans, and they're not happy about the trade, regardless of the fact that they got 2 first rounders, a third rounder, and a a starting safety because you gave up a young 25-year-old defensive stud, and those picks are first of all a year away. So now here's another season you don't have that, and you don't know they're going to be late in the first round picks, right? Because Seattle's going to be a 10-win team, most likely, if not better. So I will tell you that the temperature in New York is that the New York fans are happy they got a good haul, but they would rather have Jamal Adams today on their team still.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't fault Jet fans for being upset about losing a player like that. But at the same time, yeah, we think those are going to be late first round picks. But anything can happen. We've seen a lot happen with Seattle, in the past. I do think it's funny that when you talk about how the Jet fan base is reacting to getting picks, right? People in New York are upset that they just got an extra 2 first-round picks. People in Seattle are somehow ecstatic that they gave them up because they expected their team to screw it up. Like, I think it's amazing to me the two different sides there that you see. But yeah, I mean, we talked to our good buddy Dynasty Outhouse, Russ, who's a Seahawks fan, and he's like, yeah, whatever, it's 2 firsts, but they were going to pick the wrong players anyway. So what are you going to do?
All right, guys, you want to have a little play a little wide receiver ADP game? This is the round. This is where the guys are going. Which one of these guys would you take?
Yeah, let's do it.
Is that the name we're going with?
Yeah, that's it. I didn't do a banner for that because it couldn't fit. I tried to do a ticker, but it would just move it. It was one thing. So, all right, guys, we're going to start with the third round. So you're in the third round, and you need a wide receiver. And these 3 gentlemen are there at 33, 35, and 37 in the ADP right now. And it's Juju Smith-Schuster, Allen Robinson, and Odell Beckham Jr. So I'll start with Steve. You need a wide receiver there. Which one of those 3 guys? 3 guys, Allen Robinson had a good season. The other 2 guys are looking for bounce-back years. Who you putting your stock in?
Well, it's crazy that Odell Beckham has found himself lodged down here in the third round when just 2 years ago when he was on the Giants with a ailing Eli Manning and he was a first-round pick. So it's sad to see Odell back here. I hope we still get to see his best years forward. But I think I would probably lean with Juju here. It's close, though. Allen Robinson, I've been being sold on Allen Robinson throughout this offseason as we've gotten closer. But if I'm thinking of somebody that's a wide receiver 1, I think Juju has got the best upside to reclaim that spot and to be the highest ranked wide receiver of those 3 this year. I think with Ben coming back and him having the off year, he's young. He is hungry still, even though he had that great rookie season. So I'm going to go with Juju. I am going to rely on Big Ben a little bit more than the Trubisky-Foles experiment that we're going to see. So I know Allen Robinson had a great season last year. And like I said, they've been selling me, and I'm a believer in Allen Robinson. But if I have to choose one as my first wide receiver there, like you said, I think I'm going to go with Juju.
Kevin, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think that Juju's probably the play there. I just don't like what we've seen out of Odell Beckham. And I know you've been a big fan of him, from a talent standpoint, Sal, and but I've never really been on. I mean, obviously the guy has talent. I'm not questioning that. I just don't like the attitude and the fit in that offense with all of those weapons there. I just don't see him rebounding this year to be what he once was. And in my opinion, that means that he's a little bit further below Juju, who I do think, to Steve's point about getting Ben back and being hungry because he had a down year, I think he's the type of guy that is going to rebound and become, reassert himself as one of the top wide receivers in the game. I do think that he's just built right for that offense. He does have a good connection with Ben, and as long as Ben can stay healthy and stay away from the tasty cakes or whatever it is that he's been chomping down on, if he can put it together, then I think he's the guy this year. I like A-Rob. Don't get me wrong. Allen Robinson's a great value. I think, maybe he's all the way up to the third round in ADP. I think I've seen him in the 4th and 5th, and I'm much more comfortable taking him there because I think he's great value there. Third's probably about right, but I definitely would take the upside on Juju ahead of him.
Yeah, of course, I'm going to go OBJ, right? I've said already recently that I'm back in on Cleveland this year. I think all the pressure is not all of it, but a lot of the pressure is released from last year. I think Baker Mayfield has been humbled. I think he's going to come out and be a better player. And I think OBJ was playing hurt last year. His hip is all healed up, and I think that he really has something to prove. And I think the ego is enough for him to go out there and focus and do it this year. So in my opinion, there's one of those three guys that could finish as the number one overall wide receiver if everything goes right, and that's OBJ. And that's why I'll take the risk with him at that spot.
You don't think Juju has a chance if he's right and if him and Ben have that connection back? You don't think he has a chance at being the number one overall wide receiver?
I would say he does. I'd put OBJ above him in that spot. Allen Robinson, for me, has played with bad quarterbacks in the past, so being with those two guys, he's going to probably end up as a low end wide receiver 1 to a high wide receiver 2. But you know me, I like taking a shot with my man.
I just think the problem is Cleveland has another wide receiver 1 on the roster in Jarvis Landry, who's basically outproduced him.
You don't believe
in Cleveland. So I'm just saying, like, I think that I don't know. I just don't know that I can say that OBJ has a better chance of being the overall wide receiver 1 than Juju does, when Juju really doesn't have a ton of competition in that offense. I mean, I know they got 16 tight ends that you like, Sal, but other than that, I mean, we're talking James Washington, Deontay Johnson, who everyone likes, but we don't know if he's really that good, and Chase Claypool, who's going to be the rookie starting from behind here. I don't know.
I saw some Martavis Bryant news today, and that news was he won't be playing in the 2020. That was the news. All right, guys, let's skip ahead to the 5th round. And we have a veteran, a guy who's come into his own after a few years of Kevin, sucking on his teats. And a second-year player who was the breakout rookie, a breakout Wookie.
A Wookie?
So
breakout Wookie?
At 52, 53, and 54, all in a row, we have T.Y. Hilton, Tyler Lockett, and Terry McLaurin in the 5th round. Kevin, we'll go to you first. We know who your crush is. We know who you never lost faith in, even after he was barely draftable for 3 seasons. But he showed up, and he showed up in a big way last year. Who would you go with?
Who was the first one we said there before Lockett?
It's T.Y.
Oh, T.Y. Okay. I think I'm going to stick with Lockett in this group. I mean, obviously he's got my heart, and he always will. But beyond that, I do think that T.Y. Hilton's going to be a little bit regressed, continue to regress a little bit. He's getting older. I also don't know that I love the fit with Phillip Rivers. I mean, I guess Phillip Rivers can sling it down there, but it's not really his strong suit per se. And I just don't know that offense as a whole is going to do anything but run the ball as much as they possibly can. I like Paris Campbell. I like Paris Campbell to rebound this year and be an improved second-year player. And obviously, Michael Pittman is the guy that everyone's in love with from the rookie drafts, getting in the 2nd round right now. And I think he is a guy that with his hands, he can go up and get it, and he's going to be a factor in this offense right away. And even though I don't like most of the rookies this year, or the Wookiees, if you will, Pittman's a guy that I think he's got a specific skill set that will translate to the NFL well, because you can throw it up and let him go get it. And so I think that Hilton's going to have some competition. And so for me, it's Lockett. I think it was between those two, and it's definitely Lockett for me.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Kevin. I think it's Lockett. I don't know why. There's no statistical evidence to back this up, but I have a feeling that the Seahawks are going to throw the ball more this year. I don't know why. I really don't. But for some reason this year, I feel like they're going to let the reins off of Russell Wilson, and he's going to put up an MVP type of season. I would be going with Tyler Lockett. I do like T.Y. Hilton a bit more than Kevin does. Because I think we're going to see a different Phillip Rivers this year. I know the Chargers didn't have a terrible offensive line last year, but they also didn't have the Indianapolis Colts offensive line. So he's going to have time to throw this ball. And I know Hilton's kind of more seen as a more down the field type of route runner, but I think that they're going to be able to mix things up with him. I think that T.Y. Hilton's going to have a good year. I think his health will be the determining factor, much like it is every year, is how many games he's able to play. So I like T.Y. Hilton, but I will take Tyler Lockett because I don't know why, but I think that Seattle's going to throw the ball a lot this year.
So let me throw a little bit of monkey wrench into this. So, and if I didn't mention it, this is from Fantasy Football Calculators, ADP for PPR, and it's from about 1,600 drafts that were done in the last 2 days. So these are recent drafts. This is what people's opinions are right now. So those guys are at 52, 53, and 54. What if I told you there was 2 wide receivers at 58 and 59 that I like better than both of them? One of them has been talked about extensively in the chat, and that is Keenan Allen coming in at 58. And then, Steve, you'll be happy to hear how much I love Courtland Sutton coming in at 59. And I love Courtland Sutton. Like, I want him on all my rosters. And I think I would want both of those guys over any one of those 3 guys. Kevin, does it change your mind knowing that Keenan Allen and or Courtland Sutton was still on the board with those 3?
Yeah, I'm trading back all day long to get either of those 2 guys if I can, right? Because I'll take both of those guys over even my boy Lockett. I will take both those guys. I mean, Courtland Sutton is still ascending in my opinion. I think he could have a great year. I know that a lot of people think he might be limited based on Drew Lock's ability. I am a Lock fan, so I think that he's going to be just fine. I think the addition of Jerry Jeudy does not hurt him much. Basically, I think that they'll complement each other fairly well, and I think that they can both coexist because there aren't a whole lot of other options in that offense. With Noah Fant aside, obviously, because I think Noah Fant's going to be a great tight end. But I don't know. That's easy to me. Easy to me to take those 2 guys. Keenan Allen's, I get why people are a little,
According to Keenan Allen, he's the best wide receiver in football. And Mike Evans and Chris Goodwin, whoever that is, and Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, should step off.
Listen, there's a time maybe like 5 years ago that I would have said Keenan Allen had a chance to be that guy. He is not that guy. He's not the best wide receiver in the NFL, and it's never gonna be that way. So he's a good player, and we know that he can get open. I don't know who's going to throw it to him. So,
Steve, you took Lockett. You changing your mind with Keenan Allen and Courtland Sutton still there?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, absolutely.
Who do you prefer of the 2? Homer.
No, I actually was going to say it's tough, but I would go Keenan Allen probably between the 2 of them. But it's going to be close. The Broncos offense, especially their pass catchers, are going to be able to spread out and spread the field and spread the secondary with Sutton, Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and then Noah Fant. All of the 4 of those guys. Who are you shaking your head at, huh? KJ Hamler, not a fan?
Yeah, the KJ Hamler love I can't get on board with. I just don't get it.
Shoo. You'll see.
Okay.
Those 4 guys are going to be able to create space for each other. So I think as long as the offensive line does their job for the Broncos, they are going to be able to score points. And I believe in Drew Lock's ability. I think that what he showed us last year at the end of the season was enough for us to know that he's a competent quarterback and that he's not scared to throw the ball down the field and that he's really not worried to make any type of throw. So I like what I see out of those guys. I know I'm a Broncos fan. I know it's a homer thing to say, but I think in a couple of years we're going to see that this offense, as its entirety, is going to be highly drafted in the fantasy during fantasy drafts.
Yes, this is redraft ADP, Steve. We're talking about now, this year. Okay, but I love Courtland Sutton. I'm not much of a KJ Hamler guy.
Don't you worry.
Hey, so because we sort of touched on Paris Campbell here, I gotta my buddy John Bosch
actually.
But my buddy John Bosch here, who you love, Sal, is texting me about a deal that he's trying to make with me, and I figure I could run it by you while we're live on air here.
Okay, let's go.
He's trying to sell me Julio Jones. This is in Power Hungry, so you're in this league, Sal.
John, hang up and call me.
I was going to say this already sounds like collusion to me.
He's trying to sell me. He's trying to buy Julio Jones from me, and he wants to give me Paris Campbell and $200. Now this is a bankroll league, so absolutely, you gotta understand the league a little bit. So this may not be as great of a question for everyone listening, but Sal understands the league. He knows how much money is in there. It's a good chunk of change.
It's not a big money league. Good players go for $300 would be really high. So $200 is actually good money.
I'll give you a little context there. So in the rookie auction, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, and who was the other one? Justin Jefferson all went for exactly the same amount, $235.
Yeah. So Kevin, I don't know if you're competing in that league or not. I don't know what you do with your teams.
Borderline. Probably not.
So you're gonna give up Julio?
I would be giving up Julio.
They did that recent article on how wide receivers are still good into their mid-30s now, and I just feel like Julio's got some staying power. I mean, I'm a Julio guy. If it's me, it's my team, I'm probably keeping Julio.
I told him I wanted at least 250. He said 200 was the most he'd go, so that's where we're at right now. So
break it.
Yeah, we all know, and that's John Bosch is he's famous for overpricing his players. So if John was selling Julio, he'd want 300.
Right. So in my mind, just to break it down a little bit for the listeners, right? Obviously, for me, it came down to those three rookies. If I'm selling Julio, I need at least enough to get one of those three guys because I know Julio's depreciating, but those guys still haven't passed him in value. So if you can't get Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb or Jefferson for what I'm going to get for Julio, then it's not worth it. Yeah, and Campbell doesn't throw enough on top to cover that difference in my mind.
The trade addicts are shaking in their boots right now. They know we're coming for their show. It killed me last year at Pigs 3, I believe it was. I lost Andrew Luck, and I had one legitimate starting quarterback. Who would have known that Ryan Fitzpatrick would have made it the whole season? But I had just Aaron Rodgers at the time, and I had to give up Julio Jones. But in return, I got Jacoby Brissett and Kenny Golladay. So it actually worked out good because Golladay and Julio are pretty much on the same. Julio's still better right now, but in a dynasty, if you're going to line them up dynasty-wise, Golladay is equal at this point, if not even ranked a little bit higher. So that worked out, but it hurt me to give up my Julio. But, guys, let's move into the 6th round. These guys come in all in a row again. We got another guy who's aging out at this point, another guy who switched teams, who's been a little bit of a diva, but has the chance of really being a big play wide receiver if he just shuts his mouth and plays. And then another second-year player that was kind of boom or bust in my opinion. I think that he's ranked a little high. So at 65, we got Stephon Diggs. At 66, we have A.J. Green. And at 67, we have Hollywood Brown. Right off the top, I would tell you guys I would want Stephon Diggs of that group. I'm really out on A.J. Green at this point in pretty much all formats. I don't see a way that he has an A.J. Green type of year. So I don't want to be there for that. I think Stephon Diggs is moving into a place with John Brown across from him where they could really be pretty dynamic if they could get the passes to just come down to where they are on the field. And Hollywood Brown, to me, is a boom or bust guy, and I don't think he's going to be anything more than that going forward. But, Kevin, let's go to you. Which one of those three guys would you want?
Yeah, it's Diggs for me, and it's amazing to me that he's fallen down as far as he has because I think he's still one of the most talented receivers in the NFL, and he's just got the skill set that will work. Again, if we could somehow find him a way to have, either, massive hands, like 4-foot hands, or maybe arms that went up, 7 or 8 feet from his body. That might help. What's that?
Arms. Come on.
Yeah, right. But no, I mean, I think he's just an incredible player, and I think that given that offense and what they're looking to do, he's gonna have to do a lot of work to turn the catches that he gets into extra yards because he's not going to get fed the ball correctly, but he's still talented enough to do it. So I think you'll see him, fall into that wide receiver 2 number, and you're talking about a guy that's down there being drafted with wide receiver 3s and 4s right now. So
now listen, both of you guys have young kids, but I want you, when you're done with the show tonight, to go look up Little People. Little people
are.
The Aaron Neville sings a song. Little people, they got great big hands. They're little people with giant hands, Kevin. They're giant hands. Go check them out.
I feel like we just lost viewers and listeners all at once.
We are done anyway.
So I will just say real quick, I would also be on Diggs, but I think I'm a little bit higher on AJ Green than you guys are. Him missing the entire year last season, the Bengals defense I don't think is getting much better. So they're going to find themselves down in a lot of games. As long as he can stay healthy, he's got a really good, accurate quarterback now. I know he's got, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd there to take targets away, but I think he's still AJ Green. And I think if he can stay healthy, I think that he can still be a really, really good wide receiver. So although I would still take Diggs because I think he's probably got a little bit of a higher ceiling, I think that AJ Green is also a great value right there. And if Diggs were gone, I would easily take AJ Green ahead of Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, I know we're talking about redraft. I'm thinking right now that AJ Green's the one player this year that I think you can target and get super cheap and just make a quick return on your investment, right, mid-season. Because if he comes out and has a big couple of games, people are going to think that they can get him. You can flip him for more during the season. Not going to be a lot because he's still older and people aren't going to overpay for it. It's not like you're going to get that kind of return. But you're gonna get a significant jump from what you give to get him right now if he has a good couple of games. And I think you're right, Steve. I think he could very well have a good couple of games and improve. The guy's a very talented wide receiver. He's not older. We're just talking about Julio Jones, playing into his mid-30s. AJ Green can certainly do that if he's put the injuries behind him. So I don't see why not. I think that he's a good target for dynasties right now.
All right, we're at 51 minutes, and Steve wanted me to get it done at 55.
Oh, you're not gonna yell at Kevin about this is redraft, huh?
He's brought up. He said that he prefaced what he said by saying, "I know we're talking redraft."
Yeah, just Steve, pay attention, would you? Just try to pay attention at least once.
Understand a good preface, will you?
It takes me a good minute of your talking before I actually start dialing in and listening to you. So I apologize for missing the intro.
We're going to 60 minutes, Steve. Just so you know. All right, guys, let's move on. I got one more, and then I'm going to finish up with a tight end one. So, 9th round, I'm going to give you 4 guys to choose from. It's getting mid to later in your drafts now. Here's a guy.
This is where I draft wide receivers. This is my range right here.
I think you got 2 that really interest me. Maybe even a third. One of them's a rookie. I'm not really at this point. I wouldn't be taking him in the draft, but coming in at 100.
KJ Hamler.
It's no God. If he was this high, we'd all be in trouble.
He's a value play. Hello.
Coming in at 100 is the guy I really love this year, Marvin Jones. At 103 is CD Lamb. So we have the who we would think is the best rookie, even though Justin Jefferson is the guy we feel will do the best this year. 105 is a guy who's gotten more and more interesting to me, and I might even like more than Marvin Jones, and that's Emmanuel Sanders, playing in New Orleans this year. And then another second-year player who was a surprise breakout last year at 107, and Darius Slayton. Steve, you want one of these KG veterans, or you want a rookie or a guy who is in an offense where there's a need for a number 1 wide receiver in Darius Slayton? Who are you going with?
I would be passing on the younger guys. CD Lamb, not somebody that I'm going to be investing much this year. I would much rather get Michael Gallup than CeeDee Lamb, so I'm going to pass on him. I'm also going to pass on Darius Slayton just because of where he's going. If he's going in the same range as a Marvin Jones and Emmanuel Sanders, I'm definitely going to take the chance on one of those guys. I would probably go with Emmanuel Sanders. Having Michael Thomas on the other side of him, having an elite quarterback in Drew Brees, I think that he has got a real opportunity to be, a high-end wide receiver 2 at a low-end wide receiver 3, maybe at the very worst, as long as, again, he's dealt with some injuries the last few years as well. So as long as he's able to stay healthy, I think that Emmanuel Sanders definitely has the highest ceiling of those guys. I know Marvin Jones, like Sal said, he's been talking about him for years. He also can produce as well, but I think Emmanuel Sanders is in a prime spot to return incredible value on his draft position. So that is who I would be going, of course, in redraft.
Yeah, and I pointed out to Dingus, Matt Donnelly, it is redraft. And, just to say that, again, we've touched on that article, Emmanuel Sanders is right in that honey spot. I think he'll be 33 years old this season. But the guy seems younger than that, and he's very healthy, and he's not an aged-out veteran. It would be him for me too. Kevin?
Yeah, Sanders is the guy for me too for redraft for sure. I don't really get the Slayton love so much. I see, obviously our big friend Kareem saying he's a big Slayton guy, and I get like a lot of people are in on him right now. But I think he's one of those guys that's in that situation where I find funny. Right? Everyone loves Slayton. No one likes Daniel Jones.
I love Daniel Jones.
I've heard a lot of people that love Daniel Jones.
Really? Who?
I have.
Give me these names.
There's Sal. And
really hard, but it's
I like Daniel Jones. Don't get me wrong. I just think a lot of people are very down on him, and I've heard in multiple places that people even think that he could lose his job after another year or so and follow the Darnold path. But I'm just saying, and what I think is, if you can't, how do you like? I don't know, whatever. Anyway, but I don't get it. I don't think Slayton's that guy. I don't think he's the typical type of wide receiver that you're going to see as a stud. And Sanders just has so much upside in that offense. So. He's the guy for me.
Kareem, Slayton is available in the Falafel Assholes Ninjas, whatever league we're in. Come get him. Bring me a running back in return. All right, guys, let's finish with some tight ends. In the 13th round, let's say you've waited on tight end, which most of us do. You've passed up on all the big names at the top of the draft, and those middle round guys just didn't interest you. In the 13th round, you have some interesting guys. You have some possible breakout players. At 156, Mike Gesicki, who is joined by Kevin's favorite Adam Shaheen now in Miami. At 159, you have Janu Smith, who will now be taken over in Tennessee. And at 160, you have the correct answer here, which is Eric Ebron, who will catch oodles of touchdowns from that big tasty cake eating idiot in Pittsburgh. Kevin, you could come back on, unmute yourself, and tell me, which one of these tight ends would you be taking in the 13th round?
We have Gesicki, we have Smith, and what was the third one?
Oh, good Lord have mercy. You heard Eric Ebron.
Are you sure? Who? Look, for me, it's probably between Gesicki and Smith. Not just to be a jerk, but I just Ebron. I think he's talented. I think this, I just don't see that offense doesn't work for tight ends. I know we keep wanting it to, but they don't produce good tight ends, where they just don't. Remember Vance McDonald last year, Sal? Wasn't he a guy?
Somebody to F over. I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's great. But no, for me, I probably lean towards Gesicki. I think that he's probably, the most likely to have a breakout season. He's, showed some flashes last year, has been improving all along. He's got talented, I think he's the guy.
Steve?
I am, everyone write this down. It's taken 4 years. I'm taking Eric Ebron. He is going to be my tight end.
Steve,
I can't remember.
How did you fall into the trap? You know that the only reason he asked this question was to make you say you like Eric Ebron about something. And you still did it.
I've got Eric Ebron on my Scott Fish team, and he's a starting tight end for me. And but I can't reference this very well because I don't remember what the stats were nor who posted it. But someone posted a very convincing article about why Mike Gesicki hype has gone too far this season, and it sold me on that. Plus, Tony Reimer is a Mike Gesicki fan this year. That should be enough cause for anybody that is going to be rooting for him to have a breakout season. So just throw those little caveats in there. I'm an Eric Ebron guy this year. I think that he's going to get all the touchdowns.
Well, I don't need to answer. You know my answer is Ebron. But before we wrap up, Willis is awesome is in the chat, and he said the right answer is Blake Jarwin. Jarwin comes in 8 picks after Ebron at 168. Either one of you guys a Blake Jarwin fan?
I like Blake Jarwin. I mean, I don't think he's bad at. If you're talking about doubling up on tight ends, back-to-back rounds later here, and you get yourself Ebron and Jarwin or Gesicki and Jarwin, I think that's a good tandem to have for your season. So if you didn't touch tight end this entire time, then I think you're in a good spot.
Steve Kevin said touch tight end.
I heard it.
Wrap it up for us, buddy.
All right. And thank you all for listening to this episode of the Fantasy Football Funhouse podcast. You can find us on Twitter at FF Funhouse. You can also find us on Facebook. I think there's an Instagram about this or something. I don't know. Sal might have taken that offline. Who knows?
The FPN Instagram.
Oh, okay. There you go. All right. And also, if you would like to watch football this season, wear your mask and wash your hands and social distance where possible. Please, we all want football to happen, and we all have a part in whether or not that will happen. So please do your part and stay safe.
Just a reminder, guys, go to dfpn.storenv.com. You can get Fantasy Football Funhouse merchandise, Dynasty Dummies, J Mike's Dummy Blitz merchandise, stickers, mugs, sweatshirts, T-shirts. There's Dynasty Dummies onesies for your kids. We have to have a talk, Kyle. Why there's not a onesie for Fantasy Football Funhouse? We'll have to talk about that. And before I turn it over to Kevin to talk about charity, I'll just say one thing. I tweeted this out today. A friend of mine at work asked me, was it worth having a draft or playing fantasy football this year? And I said, yes, have your draft. Do it as close to the season as possible. Get your league mates to agree that if the season doesn't complete, take that money and donate it to a charity. You weren't going to win 8 out of 10, 10 out of 12, 12 out of 14 people were going to win no money this year anyway. So get them to agree. You already put that money up. Feel good about yourself. Donate to charity. Kevin, wrap us up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you stole my thunder completely by telling people to donate to charity and doing it with their league fees. So that's usually what I go with. But honestly, you definitely a great point by you, Sal. Have your draft, have fun, get together, where socially distance yourself from each other, but get together and try to do it in public and in an outdoor space. You can combine everything that Steve and Sal said into my final thought by saying, do your drafts, but do them safely. And donate to charity. It's really all there is to it. Let's have fun with this season, even though there may not be a whole season.
Steve, Kevin wants you to do something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Steve, are you hitting the button? You know what? Screw you guys both. I'm going to hit the button.
All right.